Friday, everyone.
Kevin, good morning. All right, everyone, we're recording right now, so just FYI. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Eastern Shore delegation. Today's February 6, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Delegate Hutchinson, would you be willing to offer prayer this morning?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. Dear Lord, we lift up to you the farmers and watermen of the Eastern Shore who work from dawn to dusk, tending the soil and harvesting the waters. We thank you for their strength, dedication, and the food they provide for our tables. Lord, we ask for your protection over them. Grant them safety on frigid waters and stamina in the scorching heat and freezing cold. Bless their labor with fruitful, generous harvests that sustain our families and our communities. Bless all of us who represent the Eastern Shore and guide us to lift up and support all the residents who reside on the best side, the right side of the Chesapeake Bay. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
You're mute.
Members, could I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes from January 30th?
Motion to approve.
Motion.
All right.
Second.
All right. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Okay. Good morning, members. So every year we have Department of Legislative Services give us a fiscal briefing on local revenues. This is one of the most interesting meetings we have during the delegation agenda for each session. We've allowed almost an hour to go through the subject and make sure there's plenty of time for questions, and following that we have two of our health systems presenting today. So without further ado, DLS, the floor is yours with as much time as I'm sure you're going to need.
All right. Well, good morning. I am Hiram Birch with DLS, and with me today are two members of our state aid team, Arnold Aja and Valerie Monroe, and also with us is two of our legislative fellows, Colin Maloney and Elijah Malik. I will be presenting from the annual State Aid Overview Report, and hopefully the report is going to be put on your screen. The report and other state aid resources are available on the DLS website, and at the end of my presentation, Valerie will demonstrate how to access these resources. So first, a quick snapshot on the level of state aid that will be provided to the Eastern Shore. The numbers reflected in this report are based on the governor's proposed budget. The General Assembly approval is still needed, so potential changes could occur to the budget being adopted at the end of session. If you turn to page 4, you can see that the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore will receive around $935 million in state aid in FY27. Of this amount, around $850 million is direct aid. And these are the funds that goes directly to the unit of local government. The public school system receives the vast majority of these funds. Also, funds will be provided to the county and municipal governments, the community colleges, local health departments, and libraries. The retirement agency, around $78.9 million is for teachers' retirement payments, and those are paid on behalf of the county governments by the state, and they go directly to the state retirement agency. Overall, it's projected that funding for Eastern Shore communities will go up by around $17 million this year. On a per capita basis, state aid ranges from around 1,000 in Talbot County to over 3,000 in Caroline County, which receives the second highest amount of state funding when shown on a per capita basis. 4 Eastern Shore counties are ranked in the top 5 in level of state support received on a per capita basis, and those are Caroline, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wycomico. Cecil County is ranked 10th, and they're close to the statewide average. 4 counties, as you can see, Kent, Queen Anne's, Talbot, and Worcester, receives less state aid when compared to other jurisdictions, and that is due to their relatively high local tax base. Around 70% of state aid to local governments and the vast majority of public school funding incorporates a local wealth measure, which utilizes both property tax base, which is measured through your county assessable base, and the income tax base, which is through your net taxable income. And the next page, on page 5, kind of visualizes this impact. And you can see the jurisdictions in the state that are in dark blue receives the highest amount of state funding, and 4 of those jurisdictions are on the Eastern Shore. And in addition, due to the strong tax base, for certain jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, they receive the less funding. And when we talk about the tax base, in Worcester County, the tax base is basically the property tax base due to the real estate and the development in Ocean City. That's what's driving Worcester County's high tax base. And in Talbot County is due to both property and income. Talbot County is home to a very affluent group of individuals. It's a relatively small portion of the overall county budget, county population, but they generate a lot of revenue in local income tax revenues. And Queen Anne's County is also a combination of both high income and strong property tax base. We are now going to shift our focus to funding that goes to the county and municipal governments. And this is shown on page 7. Here you can see that the Eastern Shore counties and municipal governments will get around $82 million in support. And this is funding through 5 major programs: the Highway User Revenue Program, Police Aid, Fire and Rescue Aid, Gaming Impact, and the Disparity Grant. Now, due to proposed actions affecting Disparity Grant counties, funding for these jurisdictions will actually go down this year. We are projecting a $7 million decrease in funding, and this occurs in the 4 Disparity Grant counties of Caroline, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wycomico. So, and you can see that on page 9. So what is happening here? Basically, 3 factors are affecting the decrease in funding for these 4 county governments. It's not the school system, it's the county government. One is the governor's proposal to hold funding under the disparity grant in FY27 constant to the formula amount in FY26. This results in a $2.8 million reduction. The second factor is last year, the General Assembly approved a one-time $5.8 million funding enhancement for disparity grant counties with a 3.2% local income tax rate. A large portion of this money also went to the Eastern Shore communities. In fact, all $5.8 million went to the 4 Eastern Shore disparity grant counties. And finally, is action that was taken last year in the 2025 BRFA. The General Assembly approved a recommendation from the governor to phase out the teachers' retirement supplemental grants. And these grants went to disparity grant counties to help offset the impact of sharing teacher retirement costs with the counties. And it resulted in a $1.5 million funding reduction last year, and the program is totally phased out this year at $1.5 million. So now we're going to kind of provide more detailed information on these programs. If you turn to page 19 in the report, we're going to shift our attention to public safety grants. And 19 shows funding that's provided under the police aid program. It's around $77 million. The vast majority of the funding is based on population density, where more urban jurisdictions receives a higher per capita amount, For most of the jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, the per capita amount is around $3.50 per capita. However, there is one component of the program is very beneficial to the Eastern Shore. So when you're dealing with any potential changes to this program, you need to pay close attention to the municipal sworn officer count. This component of the program provides around $1,950 per sworn officer for municipalities. And since a larger portion of the population on the Eastern Shore resides in municipalities compared to other jurisdictions, you receive a larger portion of your funding under this program through this component. You can see statewide, around 4.3% of funding for this program is provided through this component. But like on the Eastern Shore for Worcester County, nearly over 30% of your funding is based on your municipal sworn officers, and other jurisdictions like Talbot, around 22%. So this is a very important component of the formula. In addition, if you turn to page 20, it shows that the governor has once again included $47.1 million in enhanced funding to local governments through the Police Aid Enhancement Program. This program is allocated based on the total violent crime offenses that occurs each year. In both FY26 and FY27, the funding is based on 2023 offenses. The budget does not include an update for more recent crime data. The most recent crime data that's available is for calendar year 2024. The funding still uses last year's allocation. But this is a good thing for most jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, because in 2024, the crime rate in most Eastern Shore jurisdictions decreased. So if you would have used more updated numbers, you would have actually received less funding under the program. And this benefits 7 other jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore: Caroline, Dorchester, Kent, Somerset, Talbot, Wycomico, and Worcester. You can see that you would be retaining your funding under the program. If you would have used updated numbers, your funding would have gone down. But 2 jurisdictions that had higher crime in calendar year 2024, Cecil and Queen Anne's County, would not receive enhancements. So it's kind of some jurisdictions benefit, some do not. If you go back to page 20, it shows you that on a per capita basis, funding ranges from less than $2 per capita in Queen Anne's County, which is the second lowest amount after Garrett County, to almost $9 in Wycomico County, which is the second highest amount after Baltimore City. As we stated earlier, these funds are based on the amount of criminal activity or violent crime that occurs in a jurisdiction. So theoretically, jurisdictions who receive the least amount of money has the least level of crime. Page 26 provides you some information on the fire and rescue aid. Statewide, $16.5 million is provided. The funding for each jurisdiction is based on their level of property tax account compared to the statewide number. However, each jurisdiction is guaranteed a minimum of 2% of total funds, which is around $330,000. Most of the counties on the Eastern Shore do benefit from this minimum funding level. So once again, for this program, you really do need to make sure that the minimum funding level is not altered or lowered. We are now going to focus on the local health grants. And this is something that's very important for the Eastern Shore and other rural counties to focus on this year, because the allocation of these funds have changed, and it has benefited the urban counties right now versus the amount that's been allocated to the more rural counties. The Eastern Shore will receive around $24 million in local health grants in FY27. The statewide total is around $115.2 million, which represents a constant funding amount from the prior year. And that's one of the issues, is that the funding for this program has remained constant. However, the allocation has changed. Due to a change in the allocation of funding based on budget language adopted by the General Assembly at the 2025 session,
You muted yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Local health departments on the Eastern Shore, along with other rural and less urban counties, will realize a significant reduction in their funding in FY27. Can you still hear me? Just want to.
Absolutely. It just happened for a second. I'm not sure what happened there.
Okay. Historically, funding for local health departments was based on a core formula that was adjusted annually for population growth and inflation. But in recent years, it has been supplemented with discretionary aid to cover salary adjustments for state employees at the local health departments. Last session, budget language was added to limit the growth of funding to the program to the core formula. It appears the Department of Health, based on data provided by DBM, has recalibrated its funding allocations to comply with this requirement. This is an issue that you may want to address with the administration, DBM, and the budget committees. And if you turn to page 9 and 10 of the report, it kind of shows you that you can see that if you just go back to page 9, you can see while the funding for the program has remained constant, certain jurisdictions, based on the allocation right now that's in the governor's budget book, Caroline County is looking at a $140,000 reduction, Cecil County, $226,000, Dorchester, $480,000. You can go down to Queen Anne's, $291,000, Somerset, $228,000, Talbot, $324,000. Wycomico, $724,000, and around $840,000 from Worcester. So these are pretty significant reductions. And if you go to the next page, page 10, you can see that for many jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, funding is being proposed cut by 10 to 15%. And as you can see, the major increases are in Baltimore City, Baltimore, Montgomery, and Prince George's. And one factor is happening is that when you only focus on funding for your core, under the core formula that's based on inflation and population, it does not take into account salary actions at the state level for state employees. In the urban counties, with all of the employees at the local health department are county government employees. For more of the rural counties, the vast majority of the employees are state employees. So when money is not provided to supplement the formula to take into account salary actions at the state level, it does negatively impact funding at the local level. So that is why in recent years, the core funding formula has been supplemented by these salary adjustments. However, I do want to make a note that this has just came across at a DLS budget analysis that it does appear, according to DBM, that they are indicating that there is money in the state budget for local health departments to fund COLAs for the state employees. These dollars have not yet been allocated to the local health departments, and DBM has not committed to a price amount at this moment. But such an allocation may mitigate these declines in projected funds. So apparently there is money in the state budget. It has not been allocated right now for local health departments. DBM indicates that they intend to do so, but they have not commented or committed to a precise number. So this is something that should be monitored, not only by Eastern Shore, but in other jurisdictions, just to make sure that when the budget is finally adopted, that additional money has been allocated to help offset this. But this is what right now has been presented by DBM in the governor's proposed budget. And so that is something that you clearly want to focus on going forward. So that is one of the key highlights of this presentation, is not only what's happening at the disparity grant, but also at local health department funding. We are now going to shift our attention to page 28. This is focusing on transportation aid. State funding for local highway user revenue is based on the amount of revenue allocated to the gasoline motor vehicle revenue account. In FY27, state funding to local governments is based on 20% of funding in this revenue account. Of this funding, the vast majority, 61%, goes to Baltimore City. And that is due to the fact that Baltimore City maintains all of their roads within the city, and the state does not conduct highway maintenance except for a small portion of Interstate 95. 24% goes to county governments, and 15% goes to municipalities. And if you turn to page 31, it shows you the county and municipal portion in each jurisdiction. And it's based on road mileage and vehicle registration. As we stated earlier, the Eastern Shore has a very large portion of their residents residing in municipalities. And you can see, like for Talbot County, the county government actually receives less than 40% of the funds. The vast majority, 60%, goes to the municipalities. One thing to keep in mind about transportation funding is when you look at the chart on page 28, it shows the local share of highway user revenues. In recent years, the portion that goes to local governments has been increasing. You can see that in FY24, only 15.6% of the revenues in the GM VRA went to local governments. That portion has been increasing in recent years, and in FY26 and 27, you receive 26%. However, under current law, beginning next year in fiscal 28, these allocations are going to revert back to the fiscal 24 distribution level of 15.6%. So funding under this program most likely will decrease. Statewide, around $100 million. The impact on Eastern Shore counties is totally around $6.3 million. So this is another area where local governments may be hit next year if action doesn't change. We are now going to focus on the disparity grant in more detail, since this is a major program on the Eastern Shore. Page 32 provides some summary points on key issues affecting the disparity grant program. It kind of summarizes the program and how it has changed in recent years. Right now, 4 counties on the Eastern Shore receives funding under the program: Caroline, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wycomico. The whole goal of the program is to provide more state resources to low-wealth counties. And for this program, low wealth is measured by your net taxable income and based on income tax collections at the local level. In most states, local governments do not have access to the income tax. It's primarily a state taxing source. But in Maryland, both the state and local governments impose income tax rates, and this has become a major revenue source for local governments. However, in jurisdictions with very low net taxable income, they have a very difficult time generating as much revenue as other jurisdictions. So the state tries to supplement this by providing funding. If we turn to page 38, it's going to show you some information on funding that the state provided in FY26. In FY26, the funding aid program had funding set at $176.6 million, which was below the FY25 level. So last year, funding under this program was going to decrease by $11.9 million. To offset this decrease, the General Assembly approved $17.2 million in funding enhancements to keep the program, not only to keep the program's funding from declining. And as you can see, Eastern Shore jurisdictions benefited from that. Caroline County received around $800,000. Dorchester received over $800,000. Somerset County, $1.5 million. This is a jurisdiction that has the lowest income wealth in the state. Wycomico County, $2.7 million. So with these grants, it brought the funding and ensured that the funding was not decreased. So if you turn to page 39, what is happening this year is that the formula amount has increased to $204 million. This is a $9.8 million increase over what was provided last year through both the formula and the enhancement. However, the governor this year is proposing through BRFA to just fund the disparity grant at the 2027 formula amount of $176.6 million. Not only is this a funding reduction from last year's amount, over current law, it's a $27 million reduction. And as you can see, it has a big impact on the Eastern Shore, around over 800,000 in Cumberland. In Caroline County. You have deductions in Dorchester. You have deductions in Somerset and Wycomico County. So this is something that's very important. We will have speaking points in a briefing document that we will be putting on our website that explains this for each county. But this is something that is could be very detrimental for the counties on the Eastern Shore. Since these funds go to your low wealth counties, it may be very difficult for these jurisdictions to offset this through their own tax base, because that's the whole rationale for this program, is to provide additional resources for your low wealth jurisdictions. We will now shift our attention to gaming impact aid on page 40. And here you can see that 2 jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, Cecil County would get $4.8 million, and Worcester County would get $5.4 million. Very similar to what they received in prior years. And finally, we're going to focus on education aid. This is where the vast majority of the funds go for state aid. Around 76.5% of state aid to local governments will go to the public schools. The 9 local school systems on the Eastern Shore would get over $700 million in direct aid, and this is a $24 million increase from the prior year. The state will also provide around $80 million in funding for retirement payments for teachers, librarians, and community colleges. This represents around 10% of total state aid. As you can see on page 41, state support for public schools remained relatively strong. For Eastern Shore counties, 5 local school systems on the Eastern Shore will receive above average support. And as you can see in Somerset County, they will receive the highest level of state support this year. When measured on a per pupil basis, it's over $20,000 per pupil. 3 other local school systems, Caroline, Dorchester, and Wycomico, are ranked in the top 6, while funding for Cecil County exceeds the state average. We are now going to focus on their 3 primary proposals in the governor's budget plan that affects funding for public schools, community colleges, and teachers' retirement. So if you go back to page 12, it shows you here that the governor has provided some enhancements for public school funding. The governor's budget includes $228 million in funding enhancements for 3 formula aid programs due to implementing a revised student enrollment count for students approved for free and reduced price meals. This will affect state funding under the compensatory aid, the concentration of poverty, and the education effort adjustment. State funding for compensatory aid and concentration of poverty is based on the number of students approved for free and reduced price meals. Until this year, the free and reduced price meal count included a hold harmless provisions for local school systems participating in the federal community eligibility provision, or called SEEP. This hold harmless provision expires this year. And as a result of this hold harmless provision expiring, the free and reduced price meal count was expected to decrease by 9.4%. By extending this hold harmless provision 1 more year, it adds an additional 34,000 students, or keeps the 34,000 students included in the count. And if you turn to page 61, it kind of shows you the total impact of this. you can see that under current law, the free and reduced price meal count would have decreased by 41,000 students, which is a 9.4% decrease. By keeping the hold harmless provision in place, it brings the count back up by around 34,000 students. Now, 3 local school systems account for most of this increase. It's Baltimore City, Montgomery, and Prince George's. However, 4 other school systems on the Eastern Shore also benefits from this proposal: Caroline County, Kent, Wycomico, and Worcester. And if you go back to page 12, it shows you that the impact is pretty significant in Caroline County. You can see Caroline County would get an additional $4.2 million in funding. So that's pretty significant for that school system. Kent County will get around $157,000 in additional funding. Wycomico County, another beneficiary, is around $3.4 million and around $300,000 in additional funds in Worcester. Due to the funding formula for the compensatory aid and the concentration of poverty grant, some jurisdictions do not benefit. Either they're already at the minimum funding level due to the local wealth, or the adjustment or the additional students were not there to provide them with additional funding. Another proposal deals with retirement payments. The administration has proposed to shift 1/2 of the annual increase in state retirement payments for teachers, librarians, and community colleges back to the county government again. This was first done last year. They're doing it again this year, and the total cost statewide is around $39.3 million. So your county government will have to pick these costs up. Now, what's important to note is if you look at Caroline County, it's around $224,000, and Dorchester is $204,000, Somerset $129,000, and Wycomico $674,000. Why I mentioned those 4 counties is the county government has to pick these costs up and pay that on behalf of the school system. It's not the school system's responsibility. These are also your 4 disparity grant counties that are losing. The county government is losing their disparity grant money and also the teachers' retirement supplemental grant. So this is a year that they have already been hit with those funding cuts, but then the county government has to also then pick these funds up on behalf of the school system. So that is something to really keep in mind as we talk about the funding for disparity grant counties, because they're being hit 3 different ways, basically 4 different ways. Their formula amount is going down in 27. They are losing the one-time grant they got last year. They are losing out on their teachers' retirement supplemental grant that's been totally phased out. And now they're picking up these additional teachers' retirement costs for the school system. So that's like 4 different areas for disparity grant counties. And our final action we're going to talk about is that the Governor's Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act includes a provision that limits the annual increases in state funding under the CADE formula to 3%. And as you can see, some of the community colleges are impacted by that. Cecil County Community College will lose around $72,000. And for the regional community colleges, Chesapeake College and Warwick Community College, the funding decrease has been allocated to each county based on their share of enrollment. So this is a $21 million reduction statewide. But once again, this is basically limiting the increase. So all of these community colleges will still be receiving an increase in their funding. This is just showing you that the increase has been curtailed by $21 million. And now I'm going to turn it over to Valerie, and she's going to show you where these resources are on our webpage. We are in the process of preparing a 6-page briefing report tailored to each county on the Eastern Shore. So we have 9 of these that we are finalizing. We hope to have these up on our webpage by Monday. So here we kind of talked about things in general for the Eastern Shore. Those reports will summarize all of my comments by county. So you will have one for each county on the Eastern Shore. So Valerie will show you where you can access these reports. And then after that, we'll open for any questions you may have.
Good morning. Thank you, Hiram. So I want to just take a brief moment to show you where on our website you can find all of the state aid resources that Hiram mentioned. So starting from the Maryland General Assembly website, you select the Legislative Services tab, and this will take you to the Department of Legislative Services website. Here you select the Budget tab, and right below that, you select the State Aid to Local Governments tab. And here you can find a wealth of information regarding state aid to local governments. On the left section of our page, there are different sections which allows you to navigate to any specific state aid resource you would like to review. However, I would like to draw your attention to 4 key resources. And the first is on the state aid reports. And here we prepared a 2-year charts by program. And this provides information for fiscal 26 and for fiscal 27 by area and by program. And the information is also provided for on a statewide basis and also for each jurisdiction. So if you're interested in narrowing down your search to your specific jurisdiction, this chart allows you to do so. So if you want to select Dorchester, you can select Dorchester. The next key resource I want to draw your attention to is under session reports, and that's the State Aid Overview Report. And this is a report from which Hiram used in his presentation today. And right below State Aid Report, as Hiram just mentioned, we're preparing some briefing documents which summarizes the proposed state funding for each jurisdiction, and you will be able to find it here. We're currently working on that, and we hope to post those by Monday. So you'll be able to find those summarized documents here. And finally, on the highlighted section, we have another key resource, which is a public school funding. And the first page shows the share of public school funding from state and local resources. The second page shows total per pupil funding, and pages 3 and pages 4 breaks the data out, and it shows per pupil funding from the state and from the local resources. And if you have any questions after going through our website, feel free to reach out to us. So I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your briefing. I think we've got about 20 minutes. We can certainly go over if we need to, but why don't we start with Senator Mounts?
I got it working now. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Hiram, it's great to see you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Is there any way you could send us, send the chair just a short email identifying those 4 areas of where the disparity counties are going to incur new expenses this year, just to surmise kind of what you've just explained. It was a little, I'm concerned I may miss some of that or forget it. And if you could forward that to us in an email, just so we have it, that would be very helpful.
Yes, we'll do that today. So you should get that today sometime.
Great. It's great to see you. Thank you for everything you do.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I mean, I've got a couple questions. Maybe I'm misreading the room. We always had a lot of questions during this briefing in years past. If you go to page 41, could you go to that screen share again real quick and maybe share the page 41? Hiram, what is the unallocated amount? What is that, and what does that mean from this briefing's perspective?
Right. So what has been allocated is basically all of the main state aid programs that are formula based, but there are also other programs like innovative programs for like teacher development. And those are basically grant programs that school systems have to apply for. And so we have not allocated that because we do not have an allocation yet from MSDE. Eventually those funds will be allocated, and you basically will see that, like for this budget, you will see the funds allocated in FY25. So one of the main programs is like school safety. There's around 20-some million for school safety. We don't have that allocation. We don't have an allocation yet. So some of that to be working with MSDE, with the local school systems, to allocate some of those funds. So those are not formula-based programs.
Okay. And I see Delegate Hornberger, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Hiram. Having some issues here with my camera. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So my question deals with the, you were talking about the local health grants, and you were also talking about funding for employees. Could you kind of dig a little deeper on, you said some employees are employed by the county, some are employed by the state?
Correct. So
And
when you look at
splits?
the local health departments in the more urban counties like Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Montgomery, and Prince George's, all of the employees at the local health department are county government, or for Baltimore City, are city government employees. That's not the case for local health departments throughout the other jurisdictions. The vast majority of them are considered state employees. So when there is a state salary enhancement or a COLA, those employees receive it as well. But under the funding formula for the local health aid, it's based on inflation and population growth. But in recent years, a significant amount of money has been included to fund salary enhancements. And if you just look at the 115 million, around $83 million of that is basically funding under the core funding formula. The other probably $30 million is salary adjustments. So when the program funding is being constrained, what's being constrained is the salary enhancement section, because you have to fund the core formula at $83.8 million. So if there's any reductions, it's going to occur at the salary enhancement level, because that's the discretionary portion of the formula. The core funding portion, formula base, is mandated by law. He can't cut that unless the General Assembly approves it. So whenever you're constraining growth to a program, it's going to be at the expense of the salary component, and that is going to impact more of the other jurisdictions, because the urban jurisdictions do not receive funding under that component. So that's what's happening this year.
Thank you. Thank you. And I apologize for my camera, Mr. Chair. I think I'm going to have to call up the IT folks.
But what I do want to re-emphasize is that when the governor introduced the budget and the allocations were sent to us by the Department of Budget and Management, it did not include funds for apparently the new salary increases. So, but we have just recently been told that there is money in the budget for salary enhancements to cover the COLAs for state employees at local health departments, but they have not been allocated yet, and we don't have a precise amount on the total amount. So some of this decreases may be mitigated. I don't know if it's going to be all of it will be mitigated, but this is something that should be brought up regarding funding for local health departments.
Great. Thank you.
Delegate Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hiram, thank you. Always a pleasure to hear you. Some of the things you tell me I'm not happy about, but it's good to hear you and good to see you. I guess I just wanted to touch base briefly on things aren't getting better for the counties on this budget and on the governor's overall budget. Things are being pushed down to the counties more and more. And I want people to understand we're arguing this and we're fighting this every day over here. But like the main budget, I'm not seeing anything in what you presented today that makes me optimistic that next year will get any better. Am I correct in assuming that?
But what we can assume is that based on current law, funding under the transportation highway user revenues is projected to go down unless there's a significant increase in transportation revenues, but your share under current law is declining. Mm-hmm. So that is
well, I guess plus also last year, we're seeing him moving more and more to the local governments as far as pensions and whatever. And that's not a positive sign for our counties. And I guess everybody out there needs to be aware of this stuff and understand that we need some help on that. Wouldn't you agree?
Hiram, you're on mute again.
Right. What I can say is that the state continues, once again, when you look at state funding for local governments, due to the decisions by the General Assembly and the focus, a greater focus has been emphasized to fund public schools. As you just look at our reports over the years, a greater share of funding is being moved over to public school funding. And so when we do tend to have reductions, a lot of the reductions have been at the county municipal government level. And that is something that the Maryland Association of Counties tends to point out, that, you know, seems like when you're constraining funding, it's at the county government level or local health departments or community colleges. As you saw in the governor's proposed budget, he did not only did he not constrain funding for public schools, he provided an enhancement over what's required by current law. So
I think it's funny that as we see cuts from the federal or from the local government, the state, I'm sorry, they're moving it down to the county, and we're seeing that more and more, in my opinion. Yet we hear the governor complain constantly about the fact that the federal government is pushing down to the states, and I find it odd that it's okay to do it to our local governments, but we get a little bit upset when it's coming down from the federal government. Thank you very much.
Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this presentation. I always enjoy it. Not so much the details that comes out of it all the time, but the mere fact I enjoy using a highlighter and going line by line. But I did want to just ask, and we got our committee, as did others, get a little bit of a briefing this week on the budget. So I just wanted to still inquire, what is the percentage or what's the breakdown for the amount that the state pays versus what the locals are going to encounter as it relates to the teacher and the librarian pension, that piece? What's the percentages that breaks down? And then the second part, with regards to our school, the whole blueprint piece, I noticed on one of the bar graphs where, like in 2028, we're looking to be out of the funds that were set aside to try to offset that. Just curious, and I don't know if you want to opine on it or just figure out, like, what can our locals expect when the levels are going so low that the money steadily increasing that they're going to be tied to. So if you could just give me some insight on that, that'd be greatly appreciated.
okay, I really can't address the second one. That deals with the state's financial plan, how they want to handle. We are showing that, you know, the blueprint fund will be tapped out, and so general funds will have to be utilized going forward. I think that was presented at the fiscal briefing. So that would be a decision, you know, for the governor and the General Assembly to decide. Now, we'll have to get back with you on the total piece for the teacher's retirement. I have the state portion, so we'll pull together both the state and local portion to see the total amount, because the local schools, the local county governments have been assuming a larger portion of teachers' retirement cost in recent years. So I'll get that information to the delegation. At the same time, we provide you with a summary of our disparity grant impacts.
Okay, thank you. That is most helpful. The one last thing I wanted to inquire, we had, I think MML was on a couple of weeks ago, and our counties, or municipalities, I'm sorry, were and are very much concerned about tax differential. The comment that you made regarding the fire, EMS, and the grants that support the municipalities in that fashion, is that those pots of money, is that something that the study that takes place with tax differential could even include as support, or is that off base? I'm just trying to see where all the, the resources that are given and making certain our municipalities are whole to some extent, if that helps at all with the tax differential conversations. I could be way off base, but I'm just trying to understand.
All right. What tax differentials are doing is they're offsetting the county property tax rate that municipal residents pay for services that are provided by both the county and municipal government. Now, we have a report on that. If Valerie or if Arnold can share the screen, if we go to our local government website, and we're in the process of revamping our website, so we hope to share that with you soon. But I don't know if Arnold or Valerie, with one of you, can share the screen to the Intergovernmental Matters webpage. It's under policy areas under intergovernmental. If you go to our property tax set-off report, is under the annual report. It basically shows you the jurisdictions in Maryland that provides property tax set-offs. And I do know, if we can go to the summary that shows some jurisdictions like Talbot County, they already provide tax set-offs for their jurisdictions. So if this goes down the list, Cecil County provides a tax rebate. So a tax differential is a lower property tax rate in a municipality, a lower county property tax rate in the municipality that recognizes that the municipal government provides services in lieu of what the county government provides. A tax rebate is a payment from the county government to the municipality. So the tax rate doesn't change, but the municipality gets funding. And as you can see, Cecil County provides a tax rebate to their jurisdictions. Caroline County provides a tax differential. So that's already happening in Caroline County, a tax rebate in Cecil County. Dorchester does both. They provide, I believe, a tax differential to Cambridge and tax rebates to other jurisdictions. But if you do look to the jurisdictions that does not, and both, let's finish, Queen Anne's County provides both. Talbot County is a jurisdiction that provides a significant rebate tax differential to their jurisdictions, because Easton really accounts, the town of Easton accounts for around 45% of the county's population. But in Wicomico, in Worcester, and this is a big issue in Wicomico County, the county government does not provide a tax differential to the municipal residents of in their county. And this has resulted in a very significant property tax issue in Wicomico County. Salisbury, when you look at both the county tax rate and the municipal tax rate, they tend to have one of the largest property tax rates in the state. So this is an issue that is occurring, and this report kind of addresses it. But this currently right now is an issue between the county governments and the municipal governments in Wicomico County. There are certain jurisdictions that are required to provide a tax differential or tax rebate. In other jurisdictions, it's only authorized, and Wicomico County is a jurisdiction where it's authorized, not required.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're very welcome. So Hiram, I'd like to just tag on to Delegate Aronce's political point, and then maybe ask a question that relates to where Delegate Sample Hughes was headed. We see the budget projections out for the next 3 to 5 years. That's most of these briefings we've had have been on that level. The local part is most important to us, because it really is, how is government in Annapolis funding their priorities, and quite often the priorities are funded through the lens of unfunded, mandates. So, politically, I can say that you're giving us the evidence. We can draw our own political conclusions on that. But when Delegate Sample Hughes was talking about MACO and MML coming in, correct, MML had a top priority for these tax differential conversations. And some of the thoughts I had on this, and I'd be curious whether you would like to opine on it, is the subject that when we ask local counties to do certain things that are their own priorities, right? Not Annapolis's priorities, but rather their own priorities. Annapolis has this penchant for, deciding if there's extra money to sort of spend it on their own and not allow the local counties to benefit from, perhaps higher property tax revenues. And I suppose my question goes to that, because on page 26, and this will probably be the last question, and then we'll move along. But on page 26, there's a brief discussion about property tax accounts. And I only bring that up just to clue in the conversation about how do you, as you're making these presentations, sort of analyze the, perhaps the past property tax revenue, but also moving forward increases? Because what I think is happening, most of the citizens and state of Maryland are seeing, major property tax increases. The assessments are coming through with these 3-year phase-ins, and so the revenue is coming into the counties, and it's as if the state government knows it's happening, and so some of these reductions have a tendency to say, hey, look, the counties, you have increases in revenue, and here's how we're going to help fund the mandates. And I thought I would just ask, based on page 26, your thoughts on that, if any. You may not have a thought on it.
So what we do each year, we do, as within our department, our local government team pulls together a county revenue outlook report. And this is something that Valerie actually heads up. So if you want to put that report on, this does help illustrate the fiscal issues at the local level. And you can actually see it from the DLS webpage under what's new. It's the or there.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to our 2026 report, this is actually a snapshot of the revenues that all county governments are projected to receive in this current fiscal year. And so we look at their general fund revenues, all of their local tax revenues. So if you let's just go to the property tax real quick, because the property and income tax is the two main taxing sources. So we actually pull this report together. If you go to the next page, and the next one after that, this page basically shows you that at the local level, county governments are collecting around $11.5 billion. It shows you the tax rates that each county imposes, and also shows it on a per capita basis. So one of the issues when we're looking at like local wealth, we kind of talk about the local wealth and how certain jurisdictions like on the Eastern Shore receive less state support. This kind of shows you, for example, in Worcester County, they have a much lower property tax rate than other jurisdictions. They kind of are on par with Wycomico, but you can just look on a per capita basis how much Worcester is collecting versus Wycomico. So, and then if you go to the next page, it kind of shows you what the revenue picture is. So we're projecting, based on county government documents, their budget documents, that revenues are projecting to increase by over 5% a year just for the property tax. And then the next revenue source, if we go to income taxes, and we've done this for each of the major taxes, on this page, it shows the income tax. And once again, when you look at like Somerset County versus Talbot County, Talbot County, even with a lower tax rate, generates twice the revenue as a Somerset County. So this kind of guides us when we're looking at local wealth. And then the next page kind of guides us when we're looking at the revenue picture at the local level. For income tax revenues, they're looking at a 3% increase. So I don't know if this is incorporated into decisions, but it does kind of shows you what the local picture is, what the fiscal picture is at the local government level. So we do review all of the county budget documents and their audit reports. Our local team does, and we try to do a snapshot on what is the local picture. Because when you want to look at the total government picture, you got the state fiscal briefing at the state level, and we pull this together to get a snapshot of what is the local picture at the local government level.
Right. So to Delegate Aarons's point, when I'm looking at this information, thank you for that. I'm going to look at it more closely as we move along here. But, I guarantee you that the budget committees are looking at that, because this is their moral justification for passing some of these, unfunded mandates down to the counties. It's frustrating because counties have their own, priorities. And frankly, we see the budget out the next 3 to 5 years, and how they can continue spending the money that the government, I say they, it's we, it's us, spend money. There's just no way to do it without major tax increases and, continuing to have these conversations that you and I are going to have over the next handful of years that continue to push down to the counties. And the reason for it's going to be, well, the counties have the money. I mean, how does a county executive or a county administrator prioritize things that are local and county priorities when they know that the state's budget problem is so desperate, and it is over the next few years, and that this is going to be one of the main ways that they're going to resolve it. So I'll leave you with, you don't have to respond to that unless you wish. I'll leave you the last word, and then we'll move along with our agenda.
All right, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to present, and we are here. Our whole team is here. So if you have individual questions when you go through these documents, you want us to stop by your office or call you on Teams, we are more than welcome to answer any of your questions. And we have 2 legislative fellows that we also happy to assist you. And just let us know what additional information you need, and we will be sending you the speaking points that you want on the disparity grants and also on the retirement distribution, either today or at the latest will be Monday.
Okay, thank you very much. And we did get a presentation from your office, and if the public or members want a copy of that, we'll get that to you. And any guidance that our office can give to the public, electeds or people that are interested today, reach out to our office and we'll help go through that website that I'm familiar with. I learned something new today. I didn't know that we could find that data on property taxes. So thank you for that information. Okay, members, next up, we have our good friend Ken Kozel with the University of Maryland Shore Regional Health, and looking forward to hearing an update from what good is happening in healthcare here on the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes of time sharing our healthcare story with you. I first want to say thank you, though, for your commitment to our community and for your service to our community. And I incredibly value our partnership and just appreciate all you do on behalf of Shore Regional Health. Today, I've just got a couple of items that I'd like to update you on. Certainly answer any questions you've got about those and anything else you want to talk about from a healthcare perspective, recognizing the time that we've got for this conversation. So I wanted to start with some good news and some really exciting news, and that is the Regional Medical Center that we're building here on the midshore of Maryland continues to progress along. Let me start with the funding aspect of that project first, and again, say thank you to the entire Eastern Shore delegation for your support of the state funding for this project. We are in year 4 of a 5-year commitment from the state of Maryland to fund $100 million for the Regional Medical Center. And I've been told that our allocation in year 4 of $20 million is in the governor's budget. We have hearings established for the 16th and 17th of this month, the 16th with the House and the 17th with the Senate, to testify for that request of funds. So again, this project would not have been able to happen without the support of the governor and his $100 million allocation. And that would never have happened without the Eastern Shore delegation defining this as a key priority for the Eastern Shore. So the funding source from the state continues. And again, we appreciate your support with that. When we get the $20 million allocation, that will leave one allocation left. And for $30 million, that will fulfill the $100 million commitment from the state. So exciting news there. And we will continue to keep you posted as that progresses. The other major funding source for the Regional Medical Center is philanthropy. And I just wanted to share with this group that our community is stepping up to give to our Regional Medical Center. We have a goal of raising $100 million in philanthropy for this project. And I'm pleased to share that very early on in this process, we're only about in year 1.5 in our fundraising efforts. We've raised a little over $70 million towards that $100 million goal. So our community, our businesses, our leaders in our community are stepping up and giving their resources to this project and supporting our construction. So high level, the project is moving on. I wanted to give you a couple of quick updates on the construction project itself. And first, remind you that our intent is to open the doors of the new hospital in the summer of 2028. So we remain on that target. So I'm excited that despite some of the challenges we've had with weather and supplies and other things, we're still targeting an opening in the summer of 2028. The current construction project is really focusing on building the actual structure of the hospital itself. If you've driven past the hospital site recently, you'll see that beams are being erected, concrete is being cured, and we are beginning to raise the floors of the hospital beyond there's just the foundational pad that's there. So we are currently working on level 2 of the hospital. We get each level done, we'll continue to build upon levels up to level 6. That West Tower construction project for the structure is expected to be completed around June of this year. So when you drive past in June and late summer, you will see the structure of the hospital in place and starting to close in so we can work on the inside. So that'll be exciting to see that structure come to life and really materialize. In addition to the hospital building itself, we are also in the process of drilling geothermal wells. We've got about 40 acres of property on the back end of our hospital property where we are digging geothermal wells. Geothermal will be the main source for heating and conditioning the hospital. Those 40 acres will have about 1,728 wells on them. Each well will be drilled about 400 feet deep. So a lot of drilling, a lot of wells, but it will produce a very, very efficient way to cool and heat our facility, which is critically important in every season of the Maryland year. So that progress is continuing. We expect to have the geothermal process completed around summer of this year as well. And then the other major thing we're working on, in addition to the structure and the geothermal wells, is the egress and entrance into the campus. That's extra lanes on Route 50 to allow for entrance and exit from the campus. That's also working with State Highway Administration and creating some lights on that intersection that will allow for safer entrance and exit from the campus. We're hopeful that that project will be complete by the end of the year. And ideally, we're trying to push that up sooner. We will take a break, though, during the summer months so that we don't impede beach traffic. So a lot of different phases of this project underway. Again, summer 2028 is when we expect to complete this project and open for business. And again, I want to say a thank you to everybody on the call and the dozens of community partners and state partners that have really helped us with this project, hit our timelines, hit our targets, hit our goals, and continue towards completion. Mr. Chair, I'll stop there just to see if there's any questions about the Regional Medical Center.
Sure, and we do have additional time, so if you'd like to take it on further things. Members, do you have any questions on the new facility? It doesn't appear that we do. It's really up to you how you want to handle this. I have a couple questions, but if you'd like to talk about just the state of healthcare from your perspective, we would have time, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, just how things are going right now.
Absolutely, we'll do. So let's shift to that, because I think that is the most important part of what we do here in Maryland and on the Eastern Shore. The state of Maryland recently extended our agreement with the payer systems in our state and in our federal government to extend another 10-year agreement of our Maryland waiver model. And that's the AHEAD model. That AHEAD model has been signed and that 10-year commitment is in place now. The effective date of the new model for Maryland is 1/1/26, and we expect that that'll run through December 31st of 2035. So that 10-year commitment really just extends the current model that we've got here in Maryland with some minor provisions, minor changes to what exists today. The biggest thing about the new AHEAD model is the goals. The goals that the state is trying to achieve in this new model is to curb healthcare cost growth. The curve that's showing growth in healthcare year over year, we're trying to flatten that curve a little bit. We're also really responsible for improving the population health of the communities that we serve, so creating healthier communities in the regions that we care for, and then promote healthier living. I think all of this is designed to really create healthier communities so that we have less dependency on the most expensive part of our healthcare industry, which is the emergency department in our hospitals. So investing in things like health literacy, primary care, screenings and diagnostic testings, providing connections to our community so that patients have access to healthier living, healthier community collaborations, and ultimately rely less on the hospital system for their care. That's the intent. That's the direction we're moving in. I think from a healthcare executive perspective, I think it's the right thing to do as we advance these models in the state of Maryland to focus more on health and wellness of our community. So this new 10-year model allows us to do that. It is in place now. And really, it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds over the next 10 years. With this model, though, we do expect less revenue coming from the federal government in the form of Medicare payments and Medicaid payments. And that's important for the Shore because on average, more than 50% of our patients that we see in the hospital are Medicare, Medicaid patients. A little different in each of the counties, but it represents a significant portion of the patient population that we serve. So these funding shortages in Medicare and Medicaid will have an impact on our revenue source and our ability to provide this care that we're talking about. The expectation is that we shift some of those funding losses to our commercial payers. Some of that's taken place so far, but there's more to do along those lines. I honestly doubt, though, if we'll ever get to a net sum zero of federal government reductions and commercial payer increases, but that remains to be seen. But the AHEAD model's in place. We are working hard on trying to adapt our processes to account for the new rules, and expect, though, that by the end of this model, we'll have healthier communities in our Midshore region. With the AHEAD model, though, they've recognized that rural healthcare, like the healthcare that we provide on the Midshore, is incredibly challenging. Our populations are low. We have numerous access points that we need to create so that our vast communities have access to key services like primary care specialists and diagnostic testing. So it makes it incredibly challenging to maintain a high level of quality and care with some of the financial resources that we have in rural America. And to that end, though, the federal government has created a source of funds that total about $50 billion allocated to rural communities across the United States. In order to access those funds, the state of Maryland had to submit an application and also define how they were going to use those funds to enhance care in Maryland. Our state did, in fact, submit an application along with other recommendations for how to improve healthcare in our communities, and we were awarded $168 million in that first year of funds for the Rural Health Transformation Program. It is a 5-year program. We need to continue to seek funds in year 2 through 5. But if we continue to demonstrate advancements in health in our communities, we'll continue to seek additional funding and hopefully use those funds for places like the Midshore. Some of the areas that Midshore is really trying to focus those grant requests on include things like our workforce. We are incredibly challenged with provider workforce, so making sure that we've got the right number, type, and amounts of providers in our region is critically important because that is a direct connection to access to care for our communities. So making sure that we've got the right workforce and the right access points will ensure that we focus on the health of our citizens. Also, preventative health is a big key for us. So making sure we've got enough primary care providers, that we do screenings and diagnostic testing, and that we provide access to the patients instead of expecting them always to come to us. And then the other big piece that we'll be focusing on under the Rural Health Transformation Fund is really technological improvements, using technology to enhance the way we provide healthcare. So we are in telehealth circumstances now. We expect to expand those as the counties expand our capabilities for broadband access. We're going to be able to meet more people where they are and provide better care through technology. So those are some of our key strategies for using those funds. We'll request grant funding with our community partners in many cases to support improving the health of our communities. So important that they've acknowledged rural healthcare. Hospitals are really intended to be the primary source for these funds because we are the anchor institutions and we can make those connections with our community partners. So our hope is that hospitals will be given access to these funds and we'll use them for the benefit of our community. And the last thing I just wanted to mention that's related to all of this is you may have heard there's a lot of conversation in our region and in the state about behavioral health services. It's incredibly important to us on the Midshore that our patients have access to both inpatient services and outpatient services to support their behavioral health needs. There are a lot of great things going on in the behavioral health space on the Eastern Shore, but we're really trying to make sure that our adults have access to inpatient and outpatient services, and our child and adolescent patients also have access to those same services. So, when we talk about community partners, it's important to share that today, as a matter of fact, we're going to Tidal Health, and I believe Steve's on the call. We're going to go down and see Dr. Leonard and really see if there's a way that we can capitalize on his capacity in inpatients space for child and adolescent patients. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not reinvesting a significant amount of money if there's resources already available on the Eastern Shore. That way we can focus on our outpatient needs for that same population. So again, trying to understand what the needs are, and behavioral health is critically important for us. Trying to make sure that we've got the right access points for both adults and child and adolescent patients, and using our community partners to fill those gaps, identifying where those other gaps remain, and then trying to close them ourselves. So those are things we're working on to try to improve the health of our community. It's very challenging in rural healthcare to make ends meet, and especially with the additional investments that we're required to make. But I believe we are doing all we can to capitalize on our relationships and our partnerships, seek funding where we can appropriately, but really implement programs that are sustainable and that are going to have high quality outcomes for our patients in our region. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I think that was my update for the morning, and happy to answer any questions about those things or anything else you want to talk about today.
Okay, Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ken, always a pleasure to see you. I'm going to be a little nosy for a second. I wanted to have you expand a little bit on the collaboration with Tidal Health. And the reason I'm asking is because during the interim, many of us toured the site, your site in Cambridge, and I know we had concerns about the space that isn't being utilized, and for various reasons to its maximum capacity. So are you referring to utilizing the space at Tidal Health, or vice versa, what could be done, hopefully, if there are adolescent or adult needs for space that is currently available?
Thank you for your question, Delegate Sample Hughes. And I see Dr. Leonard's on the call too. So Steve, chime in, please. From Shore Regional Health's perspective, we originally thought that with the capacity that we have in Chestertown, with our beds open in the Chestertown Hospital, that may be a viable source for inpatient beds for child and adolescent behavioral health patients. When we began to look at that option, we recognized there was a significant cost associated with the renovation of that space. There's a state regulatory process that we would need to go through to get acceptance, and rates that would need to be increased for Shore Regional Health to offer inpatient child and adolescent services. But when we started to have this conversation more broadly, we learned that there may be a possibility for us to share in the beds that Dr. Leonard has in Tidal Health, and not have to spend all of that money, all of that time, all of that energy on beds that may exist in our region. Our intent is always to try to keep our patients on the shore where possible and not have to go to the Western Shore. And if there's capacity here for inpatient beds, we're going to try to see if we can figure that out, so we're not recreating the wheel up here in Chestertown. But with regard to the outpatient services, that's where we expect that we have a location in Cambridge where we offer outpatient services for our adult population. And our feeling is we have capacity in that space, so we could offer outpatient services for child and adolescents in that same space in Cambridge. So trying to satisfy both needs of inpatient beds through Tidal potentially, and through outpatient services starting in Cambridge with our existing space for adults, but replicating that for child and adolescents. So I'll stop. Dr. Leonard, if you have anything you want to add, please chime in.
Hey, Ken, it's good to see you. And behavioral health is one of the hardest things we do as healthcare systems. So I'm looking forward to seeing you and the team this afternoon and learning how we can collaborate. So it's truly a team sport. So looking forward to it.
Thank you.
And Steve, just remind me, how many beds do you have for the child adolescent mental health?
16.
16. Okay. Thank you kindly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Delegate Ahrens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ken, always a pleasure to see you. And I just wanted to remark, I think it's amazing to ride past the new hospital and to see what's finally happening. And, you know, it took a long time, but I appreciate your dedication to this. You've been a trooper the whole way, from the good and the bad, but just wanted to congratulate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Delegate Aritz. You've been a friend and a colleague, and I really appreciate your support as well. Thank you.
That was easy, believe me. We need it. Thanks so much.
Delegate Rice.
All right, thank you. Just two questions. One, I guess the meeting later on this afternoon, I apologize. I wish I could attend. It's an important meeting because these adolescent overstays, I mean, these are the overstays that where our adolescents are a threat to themselves or somebody else, and they go to the ER. Oftentimes in the past, they were stuck in these ER rooms for weeks and sometimes months on end. And this is something that the General Assembly has been trying to address for the last 20 years or so. So for us to be able to address this on the shore is something that we should all be very proud of. So I guess that first question is this our solution, Dr. Leonard and Ken down in for title? Is that our solution? And also, because we're not using all those beds, are we bringing in some of these adolescents from other parts of the state and region? Because I know we were sending some of these kids to Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I mean, we were sending them to some crazy places in the past.
Yeah, so I'll start, and Dr. Leonard, please chime in. But Delegate Grice, thank you so much again for your support as well. We are sending our patients all over the place, mainly to Shepherd Pratt on the Western Shore, but there are other locations that our patients are going to, and that is when we've got placement capabilities. So you're absolutely right. They are taking up time and space in our emergency department, and it really isn't the right location for those patients. We really need to get them to the appropriate location as quickly as possible for their own safety and for the safety of our team members and their families that are enduring this time in our ERs. I am hopeful that the inpatient capacity that may exist at Title will satisfy the needs of Shore and the Mid-Shore region for inpatient child and adolescent beds. That's why we're going there. That's what we intend to do, is see if we can reach agreement that our patients will go to Title for their services. That would solve a huge part of the challenges that we have on the Mid-Shore with placing our patients in a timely manner and in a safe way. So I'm hopeful. And with that, then that does free us up to focus on outpatient services and really focus on those things like intensive outpatient programs or bridge clinics that will bridge the patient's needs from that inpatient to their home and do that safely as well. So from my perspective, I think if the numbers work out right from a capacity and availability perspective, it should more than satisfy the needs of the Mid-Shore, and we can create a win-win here.
Okay, my second question, Mr. Chairman, if I may, very quickly, is our Rural Caucus meets on Tuesday, and we also that's our day for rural health as well. And so my next question to you is, what is I would say your top or maybe your top two challenges in rural health right now? I know that you've overcome a lot over the last 2 decades, and thank Shore Regional and thank and Title for that, because you guys are coming a long way. But right now, as we stand, what is your biggest challenge? Your biggest challenges?
Yeah, so I would start with workforce.
Okay.
Workforce has always been a challenge, and it will continue to be, because supply and demand just is very difficult to deal with. And when you're talking about rural communities like ours, the demand is there, but the supply is even less than what other opportunities there are for others outside of that. I say that, and that includes things like physicians, advanced practice providers, clinical expertise like radiologists, laboratory technologists, phlebotomists, you name it, the people that we need in our healthcare system to care for our patients. So that's the biggest challenge. The solutions that we're identifying are multifaceted, but unfortunately, they're not necessarily immediate. I mean, they don't have an immediate impact on some of the challenges that we have. Some of those solutions are with the School of Medicine in Baltimore, where providers now can get into medical school with a rural residency track and commit to working in rural communities when they graduate and when they finish their training. That is huge. That's an avenue that we've not had the opportunity to tap into, but that's going to take some time. 4-year programs and then training on top of that, and then coming to the shore is going to take some time for that to happen. Family medicine residency programs, again, bringing more primary care physicians to our region. Great concept. We've got some details worked out, but we won't see our first fellow until summer of 2028. So challenging from a timeline perspective. We're looking at international nurses to support our nursing needs in our hospitals. That's taking time getting those nurses through the federal government bureaucracy to get them to the Eastern Shore. That's at least another year and a half away. So workforce is the biggest challenge I think that we're faced with today. And then just really trying to continue to provide access to our community that is dispersed on the midshore. And with the low numbers we have, just trying to make it financially work and make it stable so that we can continue to offer those services year after year. I think those two are our biggest challenges on the midshore.
Okay, Ken, I think that's the last question. On behalf of the Eastern Shore delegation, if I could just applaud you personally for the work that you've done to lead on this new project that's coming up in Easton. I'm looking at you, but I'm actually looking more at your picture behind you, the vision that got to that point, the work that you did. I mean, this has been the arc of my entire 12 years in politics, frankly, watching this conversation happen from community meetings through the development of replacement facilities in Dorchester County and now to this project, and to see that level of vision become reality at a point in time where I think most of my colleagues here have been coming through this same exercise has been impressive, to say the least. And I'll give you your last word, but let me say on behalf of the delegation, seeing progress this way for healthcare in the rural parts of the state are so very important, because that's what citizens are asking for. They need to have the services that they require, and doing it in a rural capacity is literally front page news. And aside from the behavioral health part, which sounds like front page news in a partnership fashion here, you deserve all the credit for leading this charge. And for that, I'll give you your last word, and we'll move along to Title Health.
Well, Mr. Chair, thank you for your kind words, but I can't take the credit. Honestly, this has been a team sport, and everyone on this call has contributed in some form or fashion. And then there's thousands of people that aren't on this call that have really helped make this happen. So it is a team sport. I'm just so grateful to serve this community, as I'm sure each of you are. And I'm grateful for the partnerships and the friendships that we've developed over the years. I think we love what we do. We love where we live, and we want to make it as good as it can possibly be. And it takes all of us to do that. So on behalf of our board, 2,000 employees, 500 physicians, and 500 volunteers, thank you for your commitment and support to the Eastern Shore and to the Midshore and to healthcare, making it better every single day. So we appreciate it. We're available to you anytime you want to get together and talk about anything. And again, thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Title Health, Steve Leonard. And Steve, we got about a half hour before we have to go to the floor, so we have plenty of time for you to share the priorities. And sorry we got a little long, but looking forward to having you close out for us.
No, I appreciate the time you all are taking, and definitely want to thank Ken. Great presentation. Very happy with how things are proceeding up there in Easton, as I too drive by it, and long overdue in many ways. So thank you for what you're doing. And to everyone on this call, thank you for supporting the efforts here on the shore. It's important work that you do. It often goes unsung and never enough recognition, but please know that we do appreciate it each and every day, whether you're in session or not. We know that you're really thinking about how do we make things better here on the shore. Mr. Chairman, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go through just some updates really quick. This is a picture of how Title Health looks today. We are a bit of a multi-state entity, as you might imagine, here on the lower shore, as well as sites up in Sussex County. Atlantic General was the most recent addition to the organization back in May of last year. So that's been pretty exciting. But you can see, I think we're in 7 or 8 counties at this point in time. We serve about 600,000 folks now, and that's always in our mind as far as thinking about our evolution as a healthcare system. Being here on the shore, we're in many ways privileged to be in a rural environment, but when you think about 600,000 people, city of Baltimore is roughly equivalent, and we have another 300,000 or 400,000 every day of the summer. So a lot of our thought process is around what do 600,000 people need, and how do we continue our evolution so that, like Ken said, we can provide care close to home. That really is our goal. Sometimes we do have to go across the bridge, but what can we do? How can we evolve essentially to keep care close to home? AGH is doing well. The most exciting thing I think is we're doing some work around operating room, some modernization work there. Pretty exciting. March 1st, Epic goes live at AGH. So all of Delmarva will be on Epic at that point in time. So the entire Eastern Shore will be on one clinical information system. So as patients move between entities, our teams will have the ability to see exactly what's going on through one electronic healthcare record. Tidal Health Nanticoke up in Delaware, it is a bit out of the area, but at the same time, important part of our efforts up in Delaware continues to do well, volume growing. And Peninsula, we'll probably spend the most time talking about Peninsula's evolution and our contributions to workforce development and graduate medical education. But 275 beds, we are on an academic journey in Salisbury, and I'm going to talk about training physicians. And we get about 2,500 traumas a year. Interestingly enough, we're also getting about 2,500 transfers from other hospitals every year for stuff that may be outside their clinical capacity. So Peninsula continues to evolve. We do have lots of little construction projects going on, nothing quite nearly as big as what Ken's doing on the Upper Shore, but some smaller construction projects. The new GI center is going in. Probably most exciting for us, quite frankly, is a new OBS unit is getting ready to break ground. We have anywhere between 25 and 40 patients waiting in the ER for beds every single day, and we have to add beds to Tidal Health. Right now, all of our observation patients currently occupy inpatient beds upstairs, which create backlogs in the ER, longer length of stays in the ER. So we're excited about adding those 40 observation beds to the complement here at Tidal Health. Medical partners. I think it's always good for folks to kind of be aware that, the healthcare ecosystem continues to evolve in terms of our relationship with physicians. More and more physicians are part of healthcare systems or employed by large national companies, and that trend just continues. About 50 to 52% of physicians in this country are employed by healthcare systems. About 25% are employed by large Wall Street venture capital-backed firms, which means less than 25% of physicians are independent these days. That is a kind of a macroeconomic trend that has to do with healthcare reimbursement. Maryland is one of the worst when it comes to physician reimbursement in the country. I think West Virginia is worse than us, but it's something we're trying to continue to champion. It's a function of our rate-regulated system where it's an unfortunate outcome of that system where physicians just have not been reimbursed well in this state. It not only hurts independent physicians, but as all of our healthcare systems continue to employ more and more physicians, we have to get appropriate recognition, and we have to move out of being in the bottom 5 in the country when it comes to healthcare reimbursement. So I just want to create that awareness. We have over 500 physicians and APPs employed. There's well over 1,000 here, but our physician enterprise is a significant, all of those push pins throughout Delmarva are physician medical practice locations. Let's talk about physicians. We are on an academic journey here. I think, as most folks know, it takes a lot to make a physician. 4 years of undergraduate education, you got 4 years of medical school. You spend a lot of time your 3rd and 4th year doing rotations at different hospitals called clerkships. You graduate after 4 years, you're a physician. But guess what? Now you have to go to residency, and you have basically another 3 to 5 years of base residency. If you want to be a cardiologist, you got 3 more years, endocrinologist. It takes a lot. It's a supply and demand challenge in this country ever since going back to 1997 when they limited the number of residency slots in this country as a part of the federal Balanced Budget Act back then. So what happens is, especially in rural areas, it's challenging. Ken mentioned it. We have challenges there. So we decided literally after the first wave of COVID, we had been working through it with negotiations with the HSCRC in 18 and 19. In 2020, we became independently accredited by the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education at Tidal Health. That is an independent accreditation. We often get asked the question, well, are you part of Hopkins or Maryland or Christiana? No, Tidal Health is independently accredited since 2020 for residencies and fellowships. We had to go through a negotiation with the HSCRC to accomplish this. That was rather tenuous. In any other state, this would have been a free pass right from Medicare to get funding, but we had to go through that extra step. But we became accredited in 2020. And since that point in time, we've continued to grow. Why do we do this? Because physicians tend to stay close to where they train. If they train in an urban environment, they tend to stay in an urban environment. And 90 to 95% of physician residencies and fellowships are in urban environments. So if you want to have more rural physicians, you've got to train them in rural environments. That's why we do this. So Tidal Health currently has 19 approved programs. So this is something we haven't talked a lot about. Quite honestly, as we've been racing through this, we had an agreement with the state to do whatever we can in 5 years. And so we went hard and fast. I can't thank the board of this organization and, quite frankly, leveraging our financial capabilities for making an investment that is tens of millions of dollars to get these programs off the ground. It has taken away from our ability to fund other capital projects. It's impacted our margin, but this is a long play investment. And if you look down this list, we're not going to be a Hopkins with 120 programs, but we're on our way to having 25 programs here at Tidal Health. You'll notice down the left-hand side are kind of your bread and butter, and down the right-hand side are more residencies, more fellowships. We were just talking about behavioral health. We were extremely proud to be able to get application in and approved for a psychiatric residency. You can build the beds, like we have the beds, but it's all about manpower. It's about workforce. So little things like that go a long way. Critical care, OBGYN, orthopedics is going to get added to this list. Again, we're heading to 25. As a part of this, we linked it with population health. So our residencies for our clinics where they're required we purposely put in high impact areas like in Salisbury. We were really proud with state support. Many of you helped with this. Our former mayor, or now secretary, helped with this. But our community clinic for internal medicine, every single day now has 15 physicians literally working there, taking care of the community. And it's remarkable. Our family medicine clinic is broke ground. They're seeing patients in another location. Internal medicine, family medicine in the 2 ER hotspots for Salisbury. So again, these are examples of the investments that we've made to really get not just medical education off the ground, but population health. When you're building a program this size, you have to have education and simulation, conference rooms. You have to have lecture halls. We had to make significant investments. They don't apparently let physicians practice on real people now. You have to practice on mannequins, but a mannequin could be $100,000, a high fidelity mannequin, $150,000. They cry, they scream, they bleed. All these mannequins are computer controlled. They simulate all kinds of cases, but the investment in our simulation center alone was $4 or $5 million, but it's been incredibly value added. Our research investment has been strong as well. We were always fortunate to have the Richard A. Henson Research Institute, the Henson Foundation helped get that off the ground, but now there's almost 20 people in there who, again, if you're going to do graduate medical education to the degree we are, you have to provide residents and your community the benefit of accessing research for either trials, publication, things along those lines. So our research as a corollary to this has grown, which has been great. So here's a listing of all the programs. What I really find fascinating across this is that when this is matriculated, I predict in 5 and 10 years we will look at physician recruitment differently because of these efforts. Across these programs, once they're filled, we will have approximately 220 or so residents and fellows here at Tidal Health. They do rotate. We have cohorts up in Seaford. We plan on putting some at AGH. But what's great is across these 25 programs, we will matriculate 74 fully trained physicians every single year across these 25 programs. So psychiatry, we will graduate 3 psychiatrists every single year. So that alone is huge. Medical oncologists, 3 every single year. The number on the right of each of these columns. Anesthesiologists make the world go around in a hospital. We will graduate 6 every single year. So that's what's really fascinating. And, you know, we're really proud the fact that we're contributing to rural medical education. Our advisors tell us, we use a firm to help us interact with the ACGME in terms of applications. We haven't got it in writing yet, but they're not aware of another healthcare system doing as many programs to the depth we have in the last 25 years, going from literally no programs to 5 years later after the first residents started doing the depth and degree of what we're on our way to do. It's been challenging. Like I said, though, it's been a lot of pressure in this effort. There's 90 residents on site right now, and 40 more will be here in July. Next July, 40 more. And then it trails off as the programs fill out. But we're pretty proud of that. From a size perspective, this actually puts us in the top 10, 12% of all GME programs in the country in terms of size, in terms of number of programs. We'll be one of the largest rural-based programs in the country. And then it's in the state of Maryland, I think we'll probably be about the 5th or so after some of the larger systems. For us, a win is if you train them and they stay local. I will tell you that out of our first 10 graduating internal medicine residents, we kept 5 of them. 3 went on to very good fellowships because we didn't have those fellowships yet. 1 went to BB, that's great, they're on Delmarva, and 1 went to the middle of Wisconsin, home to her family, to be like a small town doctor in the middle of Wisconsin. We contributed to rural healthcare. That's a win for us. I'll tell you, out of our next class, we kept 80% of them at this point in time. I think 3 are being employed as hospitalists, internal medicine. We're getting some in our fellowships and so forth. So the evidence says that we will have the ability to keep 50% or more of the physicians that train. And again, whether we keep them, BB, Bay Health, Ken up on the mid-shore, we're okay. We want to contribute to the recruitment and retention of physicians on Delmarva. A secondary win could be Western Maryland. That's all good too. With Meritus starting their medical school, we've committed to supporting their medical students coming to the Eastern Shore, which gives a greater likelihood that they will apply for our residencies. So want to share this. Again, we've been somewhat quiet about the depth and degree because quite honestly, that our heads have just been down working on the project. But now as we kind of go forward, creating that awareness about where we are. It is evolving healthcare on the shore, especially as you look at Peninsula, really wanted to make sure that we can do whatever we can to take care of complicated patients and having all these kinds of programs and specialists. We hired 90 physicians last year to support graduate medical education across all kinds of specialties. A little bit about the strategic direction real quick. We are about to kick off and put forth Title Health 2030. I have to tell you, after going through a pandemic, 3 different mergers and affiliations, we're actually kind of hoping things settle down a bit and really just blocking and tackling on how to be a high-performing healthcare system. That really is our goal. Round out the medical education, settle down things. We do have some larger projects that are contemplated and we're working through some evolution of those, but we want to continue being a top-rated system. We're not perfect, but last year all 3 of our hospitals were A-rated by Leapfrog. 2 out of 3 are A now. 1's a B. We want to be easily accessible, and again, like I mentioned, we want to be that leader in specialty care. So, we have some small building projects, but I can tell you our human capital building effort has been significant. And again, it's a long play. But every year, as we start churning out more and more physicians with the ability to retain them in our region with whomever, that's something that's going to make us really proud, quite frankly, as much as anything else for years to come. So I think Ken did a great job on the, honestly, the regulatory update. I think the only thing I might add there is around the AHEAD model. Insurance companies, we need insurance companies to do more, in terms of contributing. They have benefited from this model for many, many years. And that's something that the MIA, us working with the HFCRC, is something we would really look for more at this point in time. But Mr. Chairman, I'll open it up to any questions, anything you might be curious about that I haven't covered.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Carrozza.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Leonard, for that fantastic update. It is exciting when you're actually on site with the opening of the clinics and then to spend time with the residents, and you just feel that workforce, that building and their interest in staying here after they complete their residency. So thank you for your leadership, and those numbers are exciting. I wanted to actually ask and follow up on the last point that you made. And I know when we start talking about the insurance companies, it gets pretty complex with the challenges you're facing. Could you just kind of walk us through kind of the immediate challenges, and from your standpoint, how we could maybe improve in that area?
Yeah, it's interesting. Our regulated environment, on paper and in theory, I'm a strong supporter of. It's unfortunately when it becomes operationalized, I do think the healthcare burden has largely been on healthcare systems versus some of the insurance companies. The rates, as I mentioned, with physicians are atrocious. They have to be addressed. As hospitals employ more and more physicians, because that's just the way it works. If you want to have a neurosurgeon in Salisbury, Maryland, guess what? They're going to be employed. So we have to do something about the rates for physician compensation and get out of the bottom 2 or 3 in the country from a state perspective. That would, I think, quite frankly, help every healthcare system in our state, because everyone employs. There has been tactics that people, some of the insurance companies have used. Some of the Medicaid providers or administrators have lists of patient conditions that when the patients present to the emergency department, they refuse to pay for the treatment. So here it is, a patient comes to us and the insurance company says, well, there's a safe and serious list. And there's a list of things that they just don't pay for because they said, well, that patient should have went somewhere else for their care, like a primary care provider. I will tell you, every hospital in the state battles with some of the Medicaid administrators because it's too late. First of all, they're your you're their insurance company. If you want to take an active role in managing their care from a population health perspective, we encourage you to. We are trying. But when they show up to the emergency department at that point in time, all bets are off. We have to treat their presentation. We can't turn them away. That would be an EMTALA violation. And then they choose just not to pay. I believe there's some lawsuits going on with some of the healthcare systems, some of the larger, at least one of the larger ones, trying to work through this and from a legal perspective. But this idea of these lists that they maintain, where they just arbitrarily say we're not going to pay for these conditions. Quite honestly, we're in a global budgeted revenue, so I have to charge them, and then I don't get money to charge other people, and I don't get paid. So every hospital struggles with that.
I think we understand the problem as you outlined. One follow-up, Mr. Chair. I know that you're active in the Maryland Hospital Association. Has the association as a whole made some recommendations specifically with the issues, the challenges you're encountering with Medicaid?
They've attempted to. They're trying to work through it, but I can't say. I've worked in other states in a past life, and I think I've encouraged, and a couple of years ago, I even spoke to the executive director at the time. The MIA, I think it's a function of our regulated environment. I don't think is as contemporary as perhaps you'd see in other states in their ability to, I'll just say, more equitably manage the relationship between hospitals and insurance companies.
Thank you for those recommendations that you can share with us.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Steve, could you expand a little bit on the conversation that Ken was having about behavioral health and sort of what sounded like a partnership with Tidal Health? I want to make sure I reinforce that. From my understanding, it sort of came a little bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I think behavioral health, no joke. We've always said we want it to be one of our strongest service lines, just like cardiac and cancer and orthopedics and all those types of things. But I will tell you, it's a difficult one. I mean, it is the hardest one we do, quite honestly. We built our child and adolescent unit, and we got the approval prior to COVID. It took years to get the staff, the psychiatry. It was the workforce issue as opposed to the building. And so everything does have to line up between a physical location being one thing, a complicated team environment, recruiting people. So I think everyone wants to do more, but at the same time, I think when there is an opportunity to say, how can we work together? I think it totally makes sense. When we did our CON, certificate of need for the child and adolescent unit, it included the whole shore. Like when the 16 bed allocation, there was analysis done as to how many nights kids from the Eastern Shore spend off the shore. And this was probably 5 years ago at this point, but that the unit was sized for beyond what we would say is our primary service area in the lower shore. It did include the broader region. So I think in many ways, this is great timing to be having these conversations because we're in a better position. You know, if they had come like 3 years ago before we had more stability in our staffing and so forth, it probably would have been a challenge. The unit's up there, it's been up there, but it really was about getting the best team, the psychiatrist. We're doing a clinical psychology fellowship here as well. So we have that infrastructure from not just the building, but the manpower perspective. And that's been the hard part. So I think anytime, quite honestly, on any service, we can figure out how to work better together. I think that's a good thing. So today, I know they're coming down. I can't, you know, we're looking forward to it this afternoon. And again, I think there's enough beds there. We can go back and always look, re-examine the data. But when it was scoped out, it did include the whole shore as far as how many kids are spending that night elsewhere.
Well, thank you for that part and the partnership. It's it feels like front page news to me because behavioral health is such a current event for us as the Eastern Shore delegation. We hear about it from boards of education. We hear about it from different nonprofits and communities that tend to help folks in this scenario. And so having leading health providers talk specifically and address that is encouraging altogether. Thank you for that. Delegate Hutchinson, you'll be the last question, and thank you.
Just real quick, I just wanted to point out to Steve that a lot of those issues that you're talking about and bringing up are going through my committee. We're working on a lot of those. There's some work groups and legislation that you'll start seeing about that.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good. Steve, I'll give you the last word. I'll say the same thing I said to Ken. You know, many of the colleagues in the Eastern Shore delegation have been around for 12 years, 8 years, and watching healthcare evolve. You know, when I came in early, it was access to care. That was sort of like the catchphrase as we were trying to solve local issues for rural citizens that needed services. And to see this evolve, to see your system evolve and grow and develop through the lens of better care for citizens in the rural part of the state. Your advocacy, your fighting, you're a scrapper on these sort of subjects. And I can tell you, we all on the Eastern Shore delegation and our citizens benefit from your leadership. And with that, I'll give you the last word and thank you for everything that you do.
You know, like I said on the first word, we do appreciate what you all do to support the work that we do. We could not it's a team sport here, and it's a complicated environment, and there's no one solution. So when we come together and figure these things out, we really appreciate your support. So thank you. Appreciate the time today and your interest.
Okay. All right. Have a good day.
Thank
members,
you.
Yep. Members, we're going to move to the federal updates because I don't see names on here. We'll just so Mike Detmer, go ahead. You're first. Congressman Aerosols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to highlight 2 letters sent by the congressman. One was to NOAA asking for an economic development, economic impact disaster declaration. And with that letter to NOAA, the congressman also forwarded the letter you authorized to last week to President Trump. The other letter was to the FDA and the CDC, bringing up the issue that was highlighted on this call last week about some more specificity with salmonella outbreak. Like, we know the data's there, and just asking for a little bit more information about that so it doesn't cast a shadow on the whole oyster industry. Also, good news for local seafood processors. Homeland Security has announced they're releasing all of the H-2B visas that are allowed by law. I'm proud to say this was done after direct negotiations by Congressman Harris with both the Speaker of the House and the White House. As always, any citations or flags or tours or any other federal concerns that your constituents may have, we look forward to assisting you with any of those. Thank you very much.
Members that have questions, is this going to be addressed to Mike, or do you just want me to wait until we finish the updates?
You can wait till the very end for me.
Okay. Alyssa and Kim, if you're on, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to highlight that Kimberly Cradaville, Senator Alsbrooks, and I are taking meetings with anyone interested in talking about congressionally directed spending. We don't have a date yet for when our portal will open, but we'll keep you updated on that, and happy to talk through any nonprofits or local governments interested in applying for funds. Thanks.
Okay.
And in the interest of time, thank you, Alyssa, but also the letters that you forwarded to our offices were sent to Washington team for review. So thank you all.
Thank you for helping with that. Senator Mounts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know why I always get called first. We're going to get somebody's going to that's going to come back to haunt me. Delegate Grice is going to be like, wait, my hand was up first. I
try to follow the
Yours was up
rules.
first,
There's
okay.
a letter of the law when it comes to Robert's rules. So your hand's up first. You get to go first. You want to go back and you'll have to.
Real quick, Mike, thank you for the update, the response to the delegation letter about the disaster relief for the fishery. Do we know when to expect a response from NOAA?
Senator, we don't, but I'll certainly pose that question and get back to you with the answer.
There are a lot of there, and I want to thank you. Please let the congressman, please give him our thanks and appreciation. I also want to thank Senator Alsobrooks and Senator Van Hollen for looking at this and making it a priority. And I just hope our delegation can be hand in glove, because this is this is life-changing stuff for a lot of people right now. We really need it. And I was just going to highlight, getting information out about what's happening is going to be a challenge. And if we can do anything to help you once you get some information or hear what's going on, to get it out either to news outlets or just through our regular social media and things like that, so people know kind of what's going on. Because I'm hearing every time if I'm in town or doing different things, it's every time I'm out, someone will come up to me and ask, what's going on, where do we get this, what's happening, that sort of thing. And when you get those updates, if we can get them out quickly, please let us know if we can help you. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Will do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Christ.
Thank you.
Just two things. I just want to remind folks that Delegate Sample Hughes and I are on the rural caucus, and we're looking for by Wednesday any bills that you guys might have, or any pieces of legislation or any concerns that anybody on the call might have in regards to any issue rural. Certainly reach out to my office or Delegate Sample Hughes' office to let us know how we can help you guys in that regard. And second, Mr. Chairman, energy is a big issue. And Delegate Hartman, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one. We had a meeting this week. It was an energy meeting, and in the meeting we had PJM, Jason Stanek, Delmarva Power was there, and Baltimore Gas and Electric, and a couple others, because we were talking about House Bill 1. And so a lot of that conversation had to do with Eastern Shore, had to do with our lagging infrastructure, and had to do with offshore wind and some other things too. So I think that would be a very relevant topic for our Eastern Shore delegation. It doesn't have to happen anytime soon, but certainly before Sunny Die, I think we need, and also give you guys an update on some of the things that our stakeholders are working on with the Eastern Shore Energy Project, which the delegation signed on to. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know what our future agendas look like, Mr. Chairman, but I think energy should certainly be a topic of conversation before Sunny.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And Jeff, thank you for your leadership with the Rural Caucus. That's a new initiative, and for the public that doesn't know what's happening, the speaker created a statewide rural caucus, and Jeff's co-chairing that. And the subjects that are being brought up there are similar to ours on the Eastern Shore delegation, but I'm happy to hear that there's the lens of statewide interest on the subjects that are all rural. So I'm hopeful that demonstrates progress on our behalf, and thank you for that. Members, I need a motion to adjourn and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you next Friday.